Do you hear that sound? That beautiful sound. That is the sound of Beetlejuice closing on Broadway after 366 performances at the Winter Garden Theatre and 313 performances at the Marquis Theatre. Torture and pain. Oh my god, hey, welcome back to my Stager YouTube channel. If you are seeing my face for the first time, my name is Mickey Jo and I am obsessed with all things theatre. And this is my Stager YouTube channel, where I talk about shows that I've been invited to go and see over here in the UK as an independent theatre critic, and I comment on news and drama happening on both sides of the Atlantic, West End and Broadway, which recently means commenting on Broadway shows closing. Yes, 'tis the season for producers to decide to cut their losses and enjoy one last bountiful Christmas season before closing in the beginning of January so as to avoid the more financially trying coming months. Because December is a great month for tourism and theatre, and January historically is a really, really awful one. So hot on the heels of announcements from The Music Man that they will not be extending past the departure of their current stars Hugh Jackman and Sutton Foster and will instead be closing in January, and Phantom of the Opera, the longest running show on Broadway, announcing that they will be closing in the earlier half of 2023, fan favourite Beetlejuice is the latest to join them on the chopping block. Now, straight off the bat, Beetlejuice has had a fascinating history on Broadway. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. We're going to talk about some of the implications of this closing, how Beetlejuice may still yet live on beyond this initial Broadway run, and we're going to talk about possibilities of a West End transfer, because I have been hearing rumours spiralling for months now, and I cannot keep them to myself any longer. Now, before we get into all of the Beetlejuice drama and gossip and tea, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to subscribe to my Stager YouTube channel for plenty more videos just like this. And if you really enjoy it, feel free to give me a tip down below via the super thanks. That would really help me as a Stager content creator to keep bringing you regular theatre content like this video. Thank you so much, and enjoy. Also, how was my Beetlejuice impression? I've literally never been able to do it before, but I have a horrible cold right now, so I feel like that made it slightly less terrible than usual. So let's talk about Beetlejuice the Musical's strange and unusual history on Broadway. Now, when this show opened, a $21 million production, it did not immediately take off with fans, and it took a little while to pick up steam. And it had this very strange trajectory of public adoration, where it was not nearly as known and as loved at the beginning of its Broadway journey as it was towards the end of its first run at the Winter Garden Theatre. Now, had it just had the chance at an open-ended run at this venue with no other shows and no other commercial producers waiting in the wings and no theatre owners to keep happy, then the show probably would have extended at the Winter Garden Theatre and kept on running longer and longer and longer. However, the initial poor sales led to a decision that the theatre would be given instead to The Music Man, to powerful producer Scott Rudin's new revival of The Music Man with very starry casting that was a surefire Broadway hit. This had so much more status than Beetlejuice that comparatively at the time was not selling well and was much more of an underdog. Not nearly as commercially obvious and hadn't shown itself to be commercially successful. And yet by the time that all this was announced, Beetlejuice had become this viral online sensation, thanks in part to some of the cast getting very big on TikTok, thanks to some content creators bizarrely reenacting almost all of the entire show. Also, its humour style and its aesthetic really endeared it to the current social media generation, earning it a global legion of fans who were not at all happy to hear that the show was being ousted in favour of The Music Man, especially by Scott Rudin. Now, news would later emerge that he had been this classic industry bully for years, and there were stories upon stories of his terrible, unprofessional conduct and bullying within the industry. Beetlejuice also wasn't helped by the Broadway shutdown because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Whatever steam it was finally picking up, whatever momentum it was gaining, and whatever fans it was beginning to really find, it lost all of that when COVID shut down all of the theatres on Broadway for an extended closure. It had also only recently and very abruptly lost one of its most popular stars. I'm not talking about Alex Brightman, who plays Beetlejuice. I am talking about Sophia Anne Caruso. Amidst swirling rumours of unprofessional conduct and difficulties backstage on the show, Sophia Anne Caruso left the production very abruptly, using her contractual out to allegedly pursue work in television. Only a few weeks after this, the entire world world would come to an abrupt halt. Now, for most Broadway shows historically, that would be where the story ends. They have been kicked out of the one theatre because a more popular, a more powerful show perhaps wanted in, and whatever online fandom the show had attracted would generate a lot of sales and streams of the cast recording, and this would generate buzz for a revival down the line or a national tour. However, there was so much unprecedented buzz and perhaps some very plucky producers and very eager cast that the show ended up being remounted. Following Broadway's reopening, Beetlejuice returned to Broadway alongside its newfound nemesis, the Music Man, and reopened at the Marquis Theatre. However, we now know in hindsight, after a similar duration of time, Beetlejuice has not been able to sustain an extended run on Broadway. It just hasn't found the consistent interest. To their credit, they have not attempted stunt casting or star casting. They are just trying to sell and market this existing product that people weren't initially super interested in and then seem to have gained some attention, but its massive online following and its devoted fans aren't translating into enough footfall of people actually going to see it in New York. It may be beloved on the internet worldwide, but that will not help it when it comes to sustaining a life on Broadway. Which is a very challenging thing to do. This should not be looked at as a commercial failure, even though technically it has not recouped its significant investment. But for this show to have resurfaced in the face of its early unfortunate closure and to have played a run almost as long as its initial run, I think is a tremendous achievement. And as a final little FU to the Music Man and its producers and the Schubert organization who own the Winter Garden Theatre, Beetlejuice will actually be closing a week after the Music Man, so they will be open on Broadway slightly longer, and you just know they are going to enjoy those final few performances when they are open and the Music Man have closed. So what's next for Beetlejuice? Well, a national tour visiting various cities across the US has already been confirmed. In fact, it's going to begin in San Francisco prior to the closure of the Broadway production, which gives us some insight into the fact that we are not expecting Alex Brightman to reprise his iconic role as Beetlejuice for this national tour. We're going to see some new casting, which is very exciting, and to their credit, the online fans of this show have been really supportive of other understudies in the role of Beetlejuice as well. But the real question is, do we think we are going to see Beetlejuice in the West End? Now, this has been talked about for a long time, and from what I can tell from over here, from the buzz that I am hearing and feeling, not since Heathers has there been a show quite so anticipated to come over here and open in the UK. My friend, the brilliant Sean Tossell, aka Theatre Fan, works tirelessly to bring news and rumours to Twitter. You can go and follow him over there. He is an absolute oracle for all of this stuff, and he has had his finger on the pulse of Beetlejuice's London-bound trajectory for a while now, and every time he alludes to the show, there is an enormous outpouring of interest. His feed absolutely blows up. People are desperate to see Beetlejuice in London. We often go live on our Instagram accounts with my boyfriend Aaron, and we are almost always asked about updates on Beetlejuice. So there have been definite rumblings about Beetlejuice coming to the West End for a while now, but like some of the most popular Broadway musicals, it seems to be taking its time. Shows like Legally Blonde and Heathers, though they built up a huge fan following, they took longer to come across to the West End. From what I can tell, the plans with Beetlejuice seem to have been ever shifting since they have emerged. So there was talk of it coming over here, and though I have never been told this concretely, my suspicions were always that it was eyeing the Dominion Theatre, which is one of the biggest theatres in the West End. It's an enormous house with a huge stage area and a massive seating capacity, which makes it a very formidable venue to sell, and there have been few shows in the last few years that have been able to sustain a long run at the Dominion Theatre. Its last major extended tenant was the musical version of The Prince of Egypt. Since then, smaller shows have been alternating shorter runs. We have recently had Dirty Dancing and Grease, and Elf will be playing over Christmas. What draws me to the Dominion, beyond just the vibe of the theatre making sense with this show, is obviously the scale of the production that Beetlejuice would bring with it. There are few stages in the West End that could accommodate this quite so comfortably as the Dominion Theatre. Would Beetlejuice prove popular enough here to sustain a run at this massive a venue? This would be the question. Now, it does have the dual appeal of musical theatre fans and young fans and social media fans, while also appealing to people who actually remember the movie from their own past, from when it actually came out, rather than all of the young fans who weren't even alive when that happened. Hopefully the duality of this nostalgia ticket buying and the young fans who know it because of TikTok and socials and the cast recording Hopefully that's enough to keep it going for a while, but the Dominion is a really massive space. It would have a challenge. Personally, and though I have no belief that this has ever actually been considered as a venue for it whatsoever, I could see it going to the Gillian Lynne Theatre, if only because I think it would look fantastic on the side. It has this enormous area for a poster to go on the side of that theatre. I think it would look great. And there is some parallel. One of the last major tenants at the Gillian Lynne Theatre before Cinderella was playing there was School of Rock, which on Broadway played the Winter Garden Theatre and also starred Alex Brightman, coincidentally enough. As I've mentioned in a previous video, the current availability of West End real estate is a mind-boggling conversation because all I'm hearing from performers and producers is that there is such an inavailability of theatres right now, even though discernibly, so many of our theatres are becoming available from early next year due to other closings. And I think there are some shows that haven't yet announced closing that we're going to find out about very soon here in London. So clearly some productions are booked into many West End theatres next year that we just don't know about yet. Could Beetlejuice be one of these? There are venues like the Phoenix Theatre that still aren't spoken for beyond their current tenant, Come From Away, which is closing in January. Now, talk of Alex Brightman brings me to my next major question. Other than all of the very exciting UK actors that we could fan cast in this part, and I've heard a lot of talk about Simon Lipkin being a great fit for Beetlejuice, do we think there is a possibility of Alex Brightman reprising his beloved role, his brilliant characterization as Beetlejuice for a West End audience? Well, he has said on his own social media that he will not be playing the role on the North American tour, and this makes sense because it is concurrent with the Broadway run, but he has mentioned he would love to be involved with the London production if that proves feasible. Now, commercially speaking, for a London audience, Alex Brightman may not be the biggest draw. However, I do think you would be hard-pressed to find a piece of celebrity stunt casting, which is often what we move towards with new musicals here in the UK, or whenever commercial producers get nervous. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a celebrity who can give you that kind of a performance with this demanding material and maintain the vocal characterization that is necessary. I'm managing that quite well now, but it's just because I'm horribly unwell. So I definitely wouldn't be surprised if we saw Alex Brightman opening Beetlejuice in the West End. If a London production materializes, it definitely will not be before the Broadway production closes, so he would be free to perform in both. Should we be concerned, however, that the closure of the Broadway production is going to spook London producers? There is a possibility. Even Heathers, which has proved this relentless, unstoppable juggernaut over here in London, has never tried to sustain an open-ended run at a large capacity venue. It opened at the Other Palace after a workshop. This was after the off-Broadway production, and not much of the material ended up being changed. Sort of a different approach to the casting and a new set design gave the show more of a new feel than sort of actually different material beyond a couple different songs. So it opened at this very small off-West End venue, then transferred for a limited season to the Theatre Royal Haymarket, went on tour because of the circumstances created by the West End sort of half and half reopening amidst COVID. It was able to play a few more months at the Theatre Royal Haymarket before then returning to its original home, the Other Palace Theatre, where it is still running now, where it is still enjoying healthy ticket sales, but at a very small venue. For Beetlejuice to open cold in a massive house would be daunting for a lot of commercial producers who have now seen this show fail to pick up a consistent audience twice on Broadway. And yet, one of the last things I heard was that there may be a very influential London producer who has taken an interest in this production, which also might be why we are seeing them taking their time and possibly moving between eyeing different theatres in the West End. Hopefully, news comes soon. Hopefully, someone takes a chance on opening this show over here. The love for this show exists. The market for this show exists. It just needs the right producers, the right marketing team to help it to connect with the fans who will go and buy tickets. With any luck, that could be London audiences. Let me know in the comments section if you are a UK-based theatre goer and you would love to see Beetlejuice coming over here. And if you got to see Beetlejuice on Broadway, let us know what you thought of it in the comments section as well. How do you feel about its closing? What do you think this means for Broadway? Are you looking forward to seeing it on tour? Let us know all things Beetlejuice and we will have a stagey chat about it down below. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed, even if the news was not all that positive for this beloved Broadway show. If you did, make sure to subscribe to my stagey YouTube YouTube channel for plenty more regular content on theatre shows just like this. Also, feel free to give me a super thanks down below, very helpful to me as a stagey content creator, or you can go to patreon.com/MickeyJoTheatre, where you can gain access to some exclusive photo and video content. I hope that everyone is staying safe and that you have a stagey day.
For 10 more seconds, I'm MickeyJoTheatre. Oh my god, hey, thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!